So the blameless message is really about learning how to let go of what is no longer serving you, so you can have the energy to move towards what you do want, meaning everything in life has a purpose and a meaning. And if we can see it from the right perspective, then we have the energy to keep moving forward.
Love, love, love this conversation with Amy Anfinson. Amy reached out to me about, gosh, it's going on 2 years now, when she discovered Delicious Alignment, and I wound up helping her with some of her marketing and branding, and most recently, she's become a book coaching client of mine. I'm so excited about her book called Blameless Living that she's currently writing. Her blameless message is making a difference in so many lives, and I'm a huge fan of her work. Amy is an international positive change coach who's an expert in the law of attraction, emotional guidance, and biblical scripture. She often serves as a bridge between the law of attraction and the Bible, helping people see the similarities in the teachings in both. In this interview, Amy and I talk about her blameless message as it relates to food, health, weight, and everyday life. Alrighty, let's get started. Hello, Amy.
Hello, Rhonda. So great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for meeting with me and doing this interview. I'm so excited to talk to you. Yes. So I just want to say that to everybody listening, I am thrilled to have Amy today because there's so many different aspects of our relationship, right? We helping you with your book a little bit as a book coach, and then I've studied some of your stuff, and you've studied some of mine, and we're just seems like we've been working together in some capacity for a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's been over a year that we have been working together for sure. And I really resonate with your work and have been a follower of Abraham Hicks for about 15 years. And so I really resonate with what you share. And I think it's fantastic that you're designating their work specifically for the body and our love of freedom of food. And so really love your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I wanted to talk to you today about your platform, so to speak, and your message. And I know that it is about blameless living because we've had a lot of conversations about this blameless living message. So I am familiar with it, but a lot of people listening to this probably maybe they're meeting you for the first time, even though you are a very, very established and successful coach. Why don't you first start out telling me a little bit about yourself in terms of the blameless living message and how that all came about, and we'll get into it about how it relates to body and food and all of that. I know that with your book, which I'm so excited about your book, and I know you are too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to come out. And it is, different chapters about blameless parenting, blameless body, blameless finances, blameless marriage. I mean, just really amazing book it's going to be. So tell me a little bit about the blameless message. What does that mean, actually?
So I received a message when I was going through some, let's just call it challenging times in my I call it my past life because it seems like so long ago. But I was really desiring to understand what blameless was. I was inspired by a story that I had heard, and the outcomes that they received by remaining blameless. And so I asked with a strong desire, and I'm going to say a pure heart, like I really just wanted to know what does it mean to be blameless? And I received it. I was awakened in the middle of the night. I call it a message from God because it was so clear. And I wrote it in my journal. And I wrote that I was humbled and honored to receive this message and promised to share it with the right people. So I've been sharing it since 2007 with people. In my coaching, I do a lot of one-on-one, and now I've started a mastermind and a book to be able to share it with more. But the message Blameless was one of those things that I didn't really understand, because every time something goes wrong in life, I always found you had to point a finger. Like someone needed to be blamed, someone needed to take responsibility for what happened. And in doing so, when you stay in that blame, that heavy energy, it's just very difficult to rise above and see the broader perspective and keep yourself moving forward. And so when I received that message, it was really powerful, and it was also very simple. But I've also found that the most powerful things in life are very simple, and it's the truth. The truth brings lightness to you. And so when I received that message, my life really transformed in a very fast amount of time when I started practicing not blaming myself, not blaming other people, not blaming my situation, not just accepting where I was at. And in doing so, it's like I unkinked, I always call it unkinking the hose. Like these messages just started coming through that gave me the guidance and the inner peace and the strength and courage that I needed to move forward, or let me just say, let go of things that were no longer aligned with me, and then move towards things that lit me up.
Yeah.
And so it's been an amazing journey. So the Blameless message is really about learning how to let go of what is no longer serving you, so you can have the energy to move towards what you do want, meaning everything in life has a purpose and a meaning. And if we can see it from the right perspective, then we have the energy to keep moving forward.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I really resonate with that so much. It sort of reminds me of that whole thing with Abraham Hicks about, you're 100% responsible for your own happiness. And when I really got that, I mean, it was many years ago when I first started practicing that, because, prior to that, I would often find myself blaming my husband, right, for or making him responsible for my happiness. And if I wasn't happy, it's his fault, right? And then just learning that I'm responsible for my happiness. Nobody else can, make me unhappy or frustrated or angry, or I'm totally responsible for that. And then of course that's a learning curve when you first learn that. So that's why I love your Blameless Living message, because it really reminds me of that, not blaming other people for anything really. And I want to ask you about, and because I have inside information about you because I know you a little
You're
bit.
helping me with a book.
Yes. And I just kind of love the fact that you come from sort of a religious background, and that you're like a bridge for the spiritual and the Abraham teachings, and with I don't know if it's Christian or Catholic or whatever. I was raised Catholic, so I'm familiar with a lot of we went to Catholic grammar school and
Yes.
yeah, Catholic schoolgirl. So I love how you're a bridge, and you have said that to me, of both worlds. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yes. Yes. I did start, and I'm going to say I started my finding of self-worth when I was in the Christian world. And I started my journey by, I thought I was going to pour Kool-Aid at Bible school. and they needed a Sunday or a Bible school teacher. And I'm like, I don't know anything about the Bible. Like I can't help. And anyway, they talked me into it. So I got to start teaching about the Bible on a fourth grade level. And that was like this entryway of like, oh, there's something bigger than me that loves me unconditionally. And so this self-worth journey began when my kids were little, because I was trying to find just feeling good about myself. And it was quite the journey when kids are young and marriage, and you don't have an instruction book how to do any of this stuff,
Right.
or even how to talk to yourself. So that journey led me to, I continued on, and I ended up creating a Sunday school class for young adults with kids, because I was really struggling to find inner peace and find confidence in myself. So I found comfort in some of the scriptures in the Bible. And when I started reading it for myself, I started receiving messages that I wasn't hearing like in the church. Like I was receiving messages of self-worth, like God has plans to prosper you and not harm you, and that God gives you not a spirit of fear and timidity, but a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind, or self-discipline. And the power of our mind has always intrigued me. So I always was drawn to those scriptures that talked about the power of our mind. So fast forward, there was a lot of things that happened in my life, but the blameless message came through. And one of the stories was about Job in the Bible. And that's where I came up with the blameless, asking like, what does that mean? And then the message came. And so the background of being a Christian was like the entryway, but I will say I received that message and it moved me forward, and amazing things unfolded. It was like tenfold, like it was like floodgates opened up when I started not blaming another person. But I'm also going to say not blaming myself, because I didn't know how to not blame myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when you learn to take full responsibility, it's easy to blame yourself. So there's a sweet spot that removes the blame but helps you keep moving forward. But there was some, let's just say, falling out at the church I was at. And then I was guided down another path to start understanding law of attraction and vibrations and emotions. And it really transformed my world so that I could learn to not take things personal. And as Abraham says, it's like learning to let other people off the hook for how you feel. And it is about taking responsibility, but there is like no blame. It's learning how to listen to your inner being. And so that journey has been so wonderful. But with everything in life, there seems to be like extremes. So you go from one extreme to another extreme, and sometimes you push away something that could have been good, but you just block it all out. So I kind of did that. Mm-hmm. And then there was like a balancing in between of like creating a bridge between the Christian world or scripture and then law of attraction. And I'm like, oh, it's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like it all starts making sense when you can get those extremes out of your mind. That's when you start getting clarity, which is a very high vibration, like one of the highest vibrations you can operate from.
Yes. I love that. So really, I mean, I'm not a Bible person either. I went through that extremes like you're talking about, no, I'm rebelling against this. This doesn't make sense to me. They're talking about it. It sounds like an angry, vengeful God. The nuns were teaching me. I was like, oh, thank you.
Trying to get you to behave.
Right. And then, coming back a little bit and hearing like people like you and your certain things, like it's all, and even at the center where I go, the Center for Spiritual Living in Asheville, once in a while, the founder there, Barbara Waterhouse, she would do a class about interpreting the Bible, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's very law of attraction.
Yes.
According to her, according to certain people who interpret it that way. There
Yes.
is a lot of law of attraction in there, obviously. But as you were speaking, I had like this epiphany. I'm like, oh my God, do we have a chapter in your book about not blaming yourself? I don't know.
Surely you, because it's the most important thing. I, I I don't know that we actually gave it a title outline yet in our outline yet, but yes, it is like the number one thing.
Oh my gosh, I love it. This is great because that is the number one. Yeah, that needs to be in there. So I will make a note of that. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know what we're gonna call it. Blameless. Yes, we'll figure. I'll help you figure that out. Yeah, and you are writing the book. I'm just helping you kind of organize the name the chapters and stuff.
Mhm.
Great. So now I'd like to ask you a little bit about your journey with, you mentioned self-love before, and with maybe body image
Mhm.
and food, because I mean, you're gorgeous, and we want to know, um, my listeners, I'm sure would want to know, like, what has been your journey, sort of like the before story, and I know you never really struggled with your weight per se, but maybe
Not
you
true.
did. Maybe you did.
That's not true.
So tell me,
Not
tell
true.
me. Not true. See, and then
Um,
I have to, yeah. I mean, it's funny when I first started coaching, um, love your body, love your food, and people were coming to me who were like, um, I'm like, oh my God, she's like this tall, thin, blonde. Why is she coming to me? And then just realizing, it has nothing to do with any of that. It really doesn't. It really, really doesn't, because the outside shell is just that, and we all have our different things going on in our heads. So yeah, tell me about your journey with body image and food and all of that.
oh goodness. Gosh, I'm having to go way back. But you know what? I remember being on my first diet when I was in third grade. And I remember going on a diet with my mom. And I remember in junior high, um, having someone in my life that would say that I needed to lose weight. And so I started creating an image about myself that was not good at all. And even though I played sports, so I was very active. But I lived in a small town and lived on a little ranch, and there just wasn't much to do. So, when you get bored or you feel like you don't have outlets, you either eat or you go play sports. So those were the things that I did the most. And there was a lot of emotional eating when I was younger. And so it was a constant yo-yo of trying to lose weight. And I also remember being in third or fourth grade so much taller than everybody else. I mean, I'm only 5'7", but it was like I grew to 5'3" when I was in like grade school. And so I towered over everyone. So I always felt like I was this big person
Hmm.
until everyone started catching up. But there was so much the inner dialogue, like what we say to ourselves
Hmm.
and what other people say to us, um, can make such an impact on our life. And I remember walking down the high school, and one of the girls that was older than me was mooing like a cow, making fun of me.
Mm.
And I mean, I look back, I'm like, I was not overweight in high school. Like I would love to be at that size now. But back then, our vision of ourselves becomes very distorted
Hmm.
when we believe what other people say to us.
Yeah.
And so I struggled with that for many, many years. I mean, and then I played college basketball. I then became a step aerobic instructor, and I would just feel like I had to work so hard, exercise so much because I couldn't control my eating. So I'd work hard and I'd eat. And so it's been a journey. And it's been, I would say when I started learning a little bit more about my own self-worth and learning how to do things that were right for me, I started making some progress in changing my eating habits. But it's always been like there would be like spurts. It's like 10 pounds this way and 10 pounds the other direction. And it's only been in the last, I don't know, maybe the last 5 or 10 years that I haven't been fighting with it so much. But you know what? I've been listening to Abraham, and I think it makes a huge difference in learning how to talk to yourself differently. I call it softening your stories and learning how to accept yourself. And so I feel much more comfortable, and I enjoy my food so much more. And I really love your book because when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this is so wonderful. Like I've followed Abraham's work and it's changed my life. But to do it towards food and body, I just thought it was such a great book that you wrote. And then even recently, my husband and I, we went on a different program, and I lost another 20 pounds last year. And but I truly believe it was because of my mindset. Like I didn't force it. I gave myself plenty of space. I got ready to be ready to eat a little differently. And so just, I think the mindset piece is so important, and how we feel about what we eat. So I've been on all spectrums of it. And I think that self-love is such an important piece, and learning what are you saying about yourself and your food.
Absolutely. So, what do you think were some the ways that your mindset shifted this past year where it became even easier for you?
I believe that I took time to feel and envision where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in a rush to get there. I just began to imagine being one size smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a lot of like even like visualization, one of John Gabrielle's meditations where you're like melting off the fat, like, having those visualizations. But the most important thing was like being able to feel it. So I worked so much more on feeling things versus trying to like take action on it. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted, if I could feel it, feelings are the first manifestation. If I could feel it, I knew I was headed in that direction. And it was like I was being guided once I did that inner work first. I was guided to the right approach and the right, even meditations, visualizations. And then it really felt easy. Like it really felt like the fat just started melting off.
I love it. And it sounds to me like also you let go of the outcome, like you weren't attached.
Very much so.
Yes. And you were, like you said, just the fact of not being in a rush, that that demonstrates how you're letting go of the how. Letting go of the how is this going to happen? You're not attached. You're not so like, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, and Abraham talks about that is when we're, anything that we want, no, we're just holding on so tightly, and we are so attached to the outcome that we don't realize it's the letting go of it, and letting go of trying to figure out how this is going to, well, maybe I should do this food program, or maybe I should join this group, or what about this, or and just like trying to control everything, and really it's the opposite. It's the letting go of it.
It really is. That was very well said, because we have thoughts that we just play over and over, and it's even like letting go of the old thoughts that we say about ourselves or about a type of food. And in that letting go, I always say you can receive guidance. And so, yes, I'm a big encourager of not rushing things and giving yourself space to get somewhere. Because when we rush, we like want to do it all at once and it's not sustainable. But if you
Right.
start preparing, like, I gave myself a month and a half of mental preparation before I even started making these adjustments
Yeah.
in the foods that I did eat. Um, and it just made such a huge difference.
If you've built up a lot of momentum over the years or even decades, judging your food choices and your body, and find yourself ready to feel better about all of it, meaning you're tired of the dieting merry-go-round and want to finally learn how to love your body and your food, private coaching with me is available for you. Coaching sessions with me are based on the teachings of Abraham Hicks and the 5 steps in my book. I am also a licensed Evoke Method practitioner, and I use this method, created by Gina Mallison, to help you move up the vibrational scale on a topic that's bothering you. Many people work with me because they want to accept their bodies, experience more health and vitality, and discover food freedom. That being said, we often wind up talking about and calibrating many different subjects and emotions in your session because, as we know, everything is related. If you'd like to schedule an initial session or coaching package with me, go to deliciousalignment.com/coaching. I have an incredible offer for you there. Now back to the interview. So tell me about the change in the foods that you ate. So you said you and your husband started a program, or followed some kind of food program, and how did that work? Because like for someone like me, I'm like no rules at all. I just because it sort of um, doesn't necessarily work out very well for me. Like if I try and follow something, like for me it's following my inner guidance and eating intuitively, asking my body what it wants, and everybody's different. So this goes to show. I mean, here you are following a program, and you like some people like more structure, some people don't like more structure. So tell me how that worked for you, having a program to follow, and did you follow it exactly, or if you didn't follow it, how did you not blame yourself?
Yeah. I came across, well, she was kind of like a colleague that I'd known for many years, and she was a past pharmacist, and she's like a functional wellness practitioner. And she had this program that she mentioned it to me, and I was like, I'm all about you. I don't really like rules. I like being sporadic, but at the same time, I also do love a bit of structure because it helps me to focus on knowing where's my lines that I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
So I am very much about freedom, but I've learned to appreciate some structure too. And so she had mentioned this program, and so I thought that could be really beneficial. It wasn't a diet though. It was just like a lifestyle change. And so there's like a phase 1 where you do 23 days of just more of a cleanse, but you could still eat a lot of different foods. And I thought, okay, I could do that. So again, everything goes back to your alignment and lining up your thoughts. So your belief, you have to go with what your belief system is. So when I feel resistance to things and I think I can feel like, ooh, that could be helpful for me, but I feel resistance, I just give myself space to work out the resistance until I feel ready. And then when I feel ready, then I can take the action. So I don't try to like push anything. I found the more space I give, but intentionally shift my thoughts to the outcome, envisioning it, not needing it, but just feeling good. Like, oh, this is where I'm headed, and I'm going to be flowy through this whole process. But this program was set up where helps to reduce inflammation in your body. And so I didn't have anything physically going on. I just knew I wanted to lose some weight, and I really did want structure at that point, something to be guided by. And the foods were, there's recipes, there's, here's what you can. And I just focused on what I could eat. And I didn't really focus on what I couldn't eat. And so I
Couldn't
didn't
eat, meaning you didn't like.
Right. I just, whatever was on there that I did like, I'm going to eat it. And that's really what I did. And my husband and I, we would have like a different meal each evening, but I started using a lot more seasonings and using like bone broth instead of oils. And the weight just started dropping off. And I was so amazed at how easy it was, but I wasn't resisting it either. So it was just a lining up, and it was kind of fun to do something with my husband, and we were doing it together. We were both losing weight, and I ended up doing it a little bit more than 23 days. You can do it kind of as long as until you get to the weight that you want. And then there's like a phase 2, where you just start introducing other foods back in. And I've really probably been more in phase 2 for quite some time, but the weight's not coming back. Like if I gain 2 or 3 pounds, I just kind of like go back to that mindset, and then it drops back off. And I think I will say during the 23 days, I had a couple of days where it was like my husband's birthday and we wanted to go out to eat, and I drank a glass of wine and I had cheesecake, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Mm-hmm.
I ate slowly and I savored every bite. And then we knew the next day we would just go back to our program. And it did not affect my weight at all. But I believe it was because I was enjoying myself. I think, when you enjoy and savor, you like raise the vibration of the food and your body, and then it doesn't have any detriment effect on you.
I love that. I love that you were eating from a place of joy. I just wrote that in the show notes for my the podcast before this with Rachel Hambling. It's like she says, eat from a place of joy, and that's what I'm hearing you say. And I'm also hearing you say, as Abraham always talks about, is line up with whatever it is that you want to do. Line up your energy with it, and you didn't rush it. You waited until you could line up with it, and you knew that it was all about your alignment and your beliefs. It's all about your beliefs. You believed that this would work for you. And somebody else might look at that and go, oh no, that's not for me. This over here is for me, or intuitive eating over here is for, whatever. So it's really all about your beliefs. So I love that you touched on all of that.
Yes. And I will say there's one other piece to that I think that was really important, was the planning ahead. But that's so alignment with Abraham's teachings as well, setting intentions, being a deliberate creator in your life. And so the planning ahead, when you plan ahead and you're aligned with it, it's fun. Like you're eager for it. And so
you mean with the food, or what is that? Or
yeah.
like food prep?
Yeah.
You talking about?
Yes. Like food prep, just having the right foods on hand. Like if I have foods that I really love in my house and I know that I don't have as much control over them, I don't have those in my house. But I have foods that I know are more maybe higher in vibrancy, and I won't like overindulge in them. And so when I need a snack, I'll go to those kind of foods. Like I love celery and almond butter. Like I love the crunch and I love the almond butter. And so that's a snack that I like to on.
Yummy. Yes. And the joy about the eating from a place of joy. I mean, that is just so good. So yummy and delicious, eating from a place of joy.
Yes.
So I'd like to ask you about your work that you're doing right now, because you mentioned to me while we were chatting before I pressed the record button that you're doing a mastermind right now,
Mhm.
and it'll be going on when this goes live in February. And you are doing some segments on um, wellness, health,
Yeah.
and through what law of attraction, blameless living, kind of.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're teaching and your thinking on all of that?
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of divided up, it's 3 months in my mastermind, and I've divided up to blameless relationships, blameless physical well being, and then blameless finances. I found that you can really use the blameless thing on anything, any situation, because it's letting blameless is letting go of something that you're hanging on to, focusing on the problem and opening yourself up to moving forward. So I've divided up into that. I also do like a weekly engagement so that there's something for them to focus on, and then I choose a focus word for the week. And actually, this week the focus word is grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of grace when I think of blameless, because I think of acceptance and grace when I think of blameless. When you there's an acceptance, I am where I am, like whether it's a physical thing that you have with your body, something in your relationship, or maybe finances, and maybe you haven't managed your money the way that you wanted. Whatever it is, when you can look at it and be real with yourself, you can gain the awareness of like, okay, what steps can I take to move towards what I want now? Because if we're avoiding something, then we can't ever take the steps and we can't make the positive changes that we want
Mm-hmm.
if we're avoiding.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say getting real with how you feel is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And so just giving them just those reminders. And so I do a lot about self-talk, inner dialogue, and how do you move yourself. I call it up the emotional guidance scale. I created an emotional guidance scale many years ago, through my work, and I've learned that if you reverse engineer how you go through life instead of just like feeling something and creating a story, instead you choose your vibration that you want to come from, and then you create a story that elicits that vibration, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just do little by little, you move up that emotional guidance scale. So I've been doing that for years, and so I call it softening your stories. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's another
Love
piece of
that. Love
what I am sharing in the blameless mastermind, is helping them soften what are they saying and get out of those extreme moments where they're triggered. And
that.
so yeah, it's a group call that we do on a weekly basis, but then there's also modules and some worksheets that they can go through. So
Yeah.
um,
So, tell me about the health and wellness piece. Like, I think you said you have a segment on that. So what are your thoughts on creating health and lessening pain in your body and all
mhm.
of that?
Well, I believe that our bodies are always giving us information. So when we learn how to listen to it without blame, but instead with compassion and grace, and saying, okay, this is happening, what can I do to help myself? And I have a client who, she's like 50s, early 50s, and she's a physician and she's in good health, but she had a stroke, and she started working with me right after she had her stroke, and we started focusing on reframing how she saw her body, and the situation of what happened to her body. And by doing that, I said, well, let's just look at the stroke as an interrupter in life. It interrupted the hamster wheel that she was on, because she was kind of like nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, 6 months later, she's like, I don't even feel like I've had a stroke, where before she was afraid to be alone because she didn't know when her body was not going to work for her again, and
Mm-hmm.
when that might happen. So what I'm teaching is that But whatever your body is trying to tell you, it's important to pause and listen to it and not be mad at it, because it's feedback. Our body gives us feedback if we've got some type of dialogue that's not aligned with the way that our inner being is seeing ourselves. And so, just again, everything that I do is about helping people to tune in to their guidance, listening to their inner being. What does it feel like when you're listening to your inner being? Because your body will be able to give you physical things, but your emotions give you signals as well when something feels off, and learning to pay attention when something feels off and when it feels good.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yes, I'm so so in alignment with all of that, and that's, I think, what what I do as well. Maybe, with the evoke method, it's getting to the emotion, because you're right. It all is expressed in the body. It's your body's communicating with you. If you have a ache or a pain or this or that, it's your body communicating with you. And it's like that, maybe that certain thought process went on for a while, and then it's like, well, you weren't listening, and now it's resulted in this or that, but not to blame yourself.
Exactly.
I love
Yes.
that
Yes.
piece of it, because sometimes I think once in a while, yeah, I mean, I could even like, oh, I have this shoulder pain, and now I'm like, what, I caused this. I wasn't thinking the right way or whatever. And yeah, you can get back into that trap of blaming yourself.
Yeah. And I do think, from the law of attraction standpoint, I think it's been wonderful to this whole movement of law of attraction and understanding vibration and emotions. But I do think the one, again, it's that extreme. We go to an extreme of like, oh, I'm responsible for this. And so it can be a blame that happens to ourselves when we take so much responsibility. And it's a fine line
Hmm.
of being aware. I call it like the observant state versus being engaged with the story that you're saying. And I also think, when you start paying attention to where you're vibrating at, when you're out of alignment, it is not a time to try to figure things out or where did this come from? It's a time to chill and
Yeah.
relax. And then whenever you are in a better place, you can look back and say, oh, okay, this thought pattern or this action made me feel this way. In the future, how would I like to do this different? But you do it with kindness and compassion with yourself
Yeah.
versus, this, I'm so responsible and I've got to force myself to do this. It's a much more compassionate approach.
Yeah. See, so now I'm having a light bulb moment with you, Amy, that before I said, yeah, it's when I learn not to blame, like, put that responsibility. I was using that word responsibility on, my husband. It's his job or something like that to make me happy. But no, I'm 100% responsible.
Mhm.
But then you soften that whole thing, because that word responsible actually has some, maybe some resistance in there. Like, oh, that's kind of like heavy. Like, oh, I'm responsible for making myself happy. And you soften that. Yeah. I mean, we are just to be easy on yourself. To be easy on yourself. Yeah. So um, you might have a pain in your knee or something like that, and to be easy on yourself about it. Yeah, we're
Mhm.
creating our reality all the time, but to be easy with yourself about it and not blame yourself.
Yes, yes. And I think it's about, I look at life as it's always in motion. So we're like energy beings, every cell in our body, everything is always moving. And so it's a matter of which direction are we pointing. And it's you're never going to stop anything, but you can at least point in the direction of where you're wanting to go. And so there's always that flow state. So I'm always looking to, how do I get back into the flow, back into the flow? meaning not fight with myself, not blame myself. But I think you can be observant and you can be aware. I always say awareness with no judgment is how you get there. But that's not the easiest thing, to be aware without judging. But if you can remember, you're just always wanting to go back into the flow where you feel at ease, you feel comfortable with yourself. But then there's also this focus point. So whenever you do find that, I'm going to call it relief, when something does happen, you're first wanting just to seek relief. And then once you find the relief, then you can start moving towards something. But so many people, including myself, will feel the contrast and then try to get all the way over here before softening, neutralizing the trigger and finding relief. And I should go this way because the vibrational jump is too far. You just have to do little bits at a time. And when you can be good with like acknowledging your progress, saying, okay, I caught myself sooner before I went down that rabbit hole than I did in the past. I'm catching it sooner. And you applaud yourself for your awareness, because we can't change anything until we become aware, but it's without judgment. And then from there, we can start focusing on, okay, I've gained control of my thoughts, and now I want to move here. And when you have compassion with yourself, you gain confidence and trust in yourself. And that's when you can set new goals or habits and just lean towards them, but you don't beat yourself up when you're not perfect the first time.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So beautiful, Amy. It's that judgment, really, that self-judgment that really, trips you up.
Yes,
That
it is.
that I think that's one of the biggest things, in that I've seen in still working with people. And it's like judging yourself for, here I am, I have an example, like with a client. I just had a session yesterday and took her through the process that I use, and then realizing, it's she's doing these amazing things. She's like doing something that is like so selfless of her, but she's so judgmental of herself for the thoughts she's having once in a while about, a little bit of self-pity. So then that judgment of herself has led her to sometimes come to the conclusion that she's a bad person for feeling, having these thoughts. And so it's that self-judgment that, yeah,
It is.
gets us.
You mentioned a selfless act, and that's an important piece as well. So many times, and I can say this is how I used to live my life, and then I see it in my clients as well. When they do selfless acts, there's almost like I'm going to do this because this is what I'm supposed to do. This is how you make the world better. And yet, if you're not aligned with it and you're saying, I need to do this, I'm supposed to do this, I'm going to do this, but then there's an underlying vibration of resentment.
Yes.
The resentment holds you back from enjoying the act of selflessness. So it's the alignment before the selfless act.
Yes.
Versus selfless act and not knowing what you're feeling, because until you fill your cup up first, you don't have much to give to another person. Yeah. And I see it time and time again that there's this over giving from a place of feeling like, well, I'm going to do it because no one else is going to do it. Like, that's not alignment. And then that's when you build up resentment towards yourself, but you don't know it's towards yourself. You think it's towards someone else.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it goes back to that alignment again.
Yes.
It is like the answer, right?
It is the answer.
It is the answer. It is absolutely. Well, wonderful. Well, Amy, let people know how they can get a hold of you or find you and all that good stuff.
Yes. So I have a website, amyanfinson.com. And it has my group coaching. You can also do one-on-one. And I also have an online program called Tune In and Rise Above. And it's teaching you to tune into your own guidance. Like, how do you listen and how do you gain intuition and know what's right for you, and then rise above all those doubts and worries and beliefs that you're taught over the years. And so I do have an online program if someone wants to learn how to go through the process of really gaining intuition on their own inner guidance. And it's 6 modules that they can go through with some exercises. But I'm also going to say it's really got a vibrational calibration to it, where the messages are always softening the stories and elevating your inner dialogue so that you're accessing a broader perspective of yourself versus this limited view that we sometimes have. So there is an online program. I do have masterminds throughout the year that you can look into. And I do have one-on-ones and like a weekly wisdom that comes out, so you can get on my mailing list. And I have an ebook that's free, and it's called The Better It Gets, The Better It Gets.
Oh, I love it. The better it gets, the better it gets. And you're writing a book.
And I'm writing a book. It is in the process, with appreciation to you, helping me put these thoughts in an outlined form and put things together. So yes, I'm super excited about the book as well.
Yeah. Can't wait till that comes out too. Wonderful, Amy. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I love you. I'm a fan. You're just like being a light in my life, and appreciate, the time that we get to spend together.
Well, I feel the same way. I appreciate you inviting me here, and I love the work you're doing, and I love our time together as well. So thank you.
You're so welcome. Here are the takeaways from this interview. 1. It's very difficult to see the broader perspective and keep yourself moving forward when you're blaming others for things in your life. 2. Learn to let people off the hook for how you feel. That's where the true freedom lies. 3. You also want to stop blaming yourself. When you stop blaming yourself, you can start allowing what you want to come into your life. This also leads you to more self-worth and unconditional love for yourself and others. 4. When you let go of things you are not aligned with, you can move towards the things that light you up. 5. Become aware of what you're saying about yourself and about your food. 6. When you enjoy and savor your food, you raise the vibration of that food, and it doesn't have any detrimental effect on you. 7. Our bodies are always giving us feedback. Learn how to listen to your body without blame, but instead with compassion and grace. 8. Pay attention to your emotions. They are your guidance system. 9. When you're out of alignment, this is not a time to try and figure things out. It's a time to chill and relax. And 10. Don't be in a rush to get there. Rushing creates resistance. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Amy. Make sure to join us in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/delicious-alignment. Please help me spread the word by telling your friends about this podcast. Share about it on your Instagram, post about it on your Facebook, or text the link delicious-alignment.com/podcast to a friend who might be a match to this message. I've got some wonderful guests coming up, so make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast or follow us on Spotify. If you do share this podcast episode on Instagram, please tag me at Delicious Alignment so I can say hello. Connect with Amy at amyanfinson.com and sign up for her free The Better It Gets, The Better It Gets ebook. Thank you again for listening. I appreciate you so much and love hearing how this podcast is making a difference in your life.